We're going to start off with a brief introduction to what is digital disruption and what is digital transformation. And we're going to talk about the fact that they are two very related issues, but they're also very different. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. Then for those of you that don't know much about technology, I'll give you an idea of some of the current and emerging technologies that are out there at the moment, so you can do your own research later on, just so you know what those tech are. We'll also then take a look at a number of trends that are happening in the business landscape as a result of those technologies. And finally, we'll end off by taking a look at a framework on how you can actually plan and implement your own digital transformation. I'm a lecturer and trainer. From time to time, I do some corporate training, usually in digital marketing, but a lot more in the last 2 years around digital transformation. My experience has been working with companies like HubSpot, who's a US-based marketing tech company, the Digital Marketing Institute, and then spent some time lecturing as well. I also judge a couple of industry awards like the Spider Awards, Digital Media Awards, and Education Awards. And then from time to time, whenever people will listen to me, I'm fond of jumping on a webinar or a stage at different conferences to talk about these topics. So that's enough about me. Let's talk a little bit more about the reason you've all come here. I want to open by bringing you this quotation from Pierre Natteram, former CEO and chairman of Accenture. At a World Economic Forum conference, he said that digital is the main reason just over half of the companies on the Fortune 500 list have disappeared since the year 2000. So let's get that to just sit with us for a moment. If you looked at the Fortune 500 10 or 15 years ago, it would have been mainly composed of those traditional organizations that we would have had as our blue chips, that we have built our pensions upon. The likes of the retailers, the car companies, bigger companies like that. But if you go back and take a look at the Fortune 500 now, there's a lot more of the big tech companies that keep on piling up into the top 10. It's our Googles, our Amazons, our Teslas, our Apples, our Microsofts, IBM, Oracle, and the list just goes on. The tech companies are taking an even bigger share in terms of the global economy. That brings me to the first point of what is digital disruption and what is digital transformation. Well, digital disruption is, according to Gartner, an effect that changes the fundamental expectations and behavior in a culture, market, industry, or process that is caused by or expressed through digital capabilities, channels, or assets. So the key thing here is it's changes in the fundamental way that a market or industry operates. And also this then impacts your organization. So it's a fundamental change outside of your organization that creeps into your organization. And that creep and your response is what we call digital transformation. It's the process of exploiting digital technologies and supporting capabilities to create a robust new business model. So that is your response. Digital disruption is change. Digital transformation is your response to try and get ahead of it. Here's my attempt at making some definitions, or my attempt at summarizing that dichotomy between the two. Digital transformation is your response to not only the external forces, but your internal need to upgrade the systems, processes, and ways that your business operates using technology. Also, it's not just about technology. You may have heard this quotation or this cliche being batted around for the last number of years, that digital transformation is not just about technology. When I heard that, I said to myself, well, what else could it be about? It's kind of in the name, but there's so much more than just the tech. There's the people, the processes, and we'll be looking at those in more detail at the end with a framework of approximately 8 areas for you to focus on. Technology is only one. Let's take a quick little look then at a spotlight of how we are going and getting along in Ireland. This is from Amoric and Microsoft and their research. So the state of play is that 51% of organizations already have digital transformation strategies in place. 48 of those are worrying that their competitors are transforming before they will. 30% don't know what technologies they should be using in their transformations, and 41 say that they are lacking the right skills. So we have approximately a 50-50 gap here. Some organizations are already in progress with their digital transformations, others are not. But again, 50-50, as in 48% are worried that competitors are going to make a leap ahead of them and that they will lose that competitive position they have in the market. So this is a point of concern, but also a massive point of opportunity for many boards out there to identify what's happening in your industry, what is happening in terms of your customer base, and also what you can do within your organization to adapt. We'll take a look in some more detail. What I want to do now is call your attention to some large trends and technologies. So this is one that I'm sure some of you have seen. This is Gartner's hype cycle. They release these every year and they have several different hype cycles. They have IoT hype cycles, integrated supply chain, digital marketing. It's basically their analysis of what is the state of technology in terms of what's new and emerging, what's already in the market, or what is so far away that we're still only thinking and imagining it versus it's actually got a use case and could be out here. So this is the hype cycle for emerging technologies 2020. So what we could see here, if we bring our attention to the peak of inflated expectations, this is where we're really thinking that technology is going to be amazing and transformative, and a lot of VC funding is going into it. There's a lot of trial and error, and some of the tech isn't actually going to work. It's just still being tinkered with, basically. But when we get to the trough of disillusionment and the slope of enlightenment, kind of these next two boxes, what's happening here is these are the technologies or the iteration of that technology that's most likely going to end up going into the market and being diffused throughout society and industries. So I think it's always a great idea to take a look at the entire cycle. The first stage at Innovation Trigger, this is quite theoretical, it's basically just the ideas and the bugs are still haven't been tweaked and fixed out yet. But it's when you get to this trough of disillusionment and slope of enlightenment, that's when you're probably already seeing a competitor or others in your industry implementing that technology. So you want to be actually finding the technology around the peak of inflated expectations and testing it out and bringing it into your organization to see how it can work for you. Because you don't want to wait another year or two to say it's a surefire tech. And then before you know it, you've lost your position and your competitors are already using it and you're playing catch up and you're 2 years behind. Here are just some of the key technologies then that I'd like to break down for you. And there's many others that are on this list, but these are just some of the key ones. The first one is cloud computing. So this is not by any means new. It's been out easily 2 decades or so. This is what we often refer to as the cloud. So it could be something as simple as your Google Docs, or the fact that we're hosting this webinar using software that's in the cloud. It streams up onto some servers that are probably off the coast of the US, used by Zoom. And the point is that information is not physically in one place. It's not on your desktop. It's not on your computer. It's stored off site. And this is great in terms of your ability to access it anywhere you go. So you can think of your email, for example, you can think of your online banking, or you could think of some of those other processes you use with your own organization, maybe your virtualization desktop. Next one is the Internet of Things. So if any of you out there has wearable technology, if you have, for example, a Fitbit, a smartwatch, even if you have your phone, the point is the Internet of Things is the fact that there are tons of sensors out around the world collecting more and more information. In terms of consumables, it's things like our phones, our Fitbits, but in terms of Industry 4.0, this could be sensors that are built into your trucks to track where they are, sensors built into different aspects of your manufacturing plant, or a large product that's a work in progress, such as if you're manufacturing cars, for example, or machinery, and you can find out where your hardware is at any given point in time. I read a case from a manufacturing company in the Midlands of Ireland. I read this about a year and a half ago or so. And one of the use cases they had for IoT was every uniform for their staff had sensors in it, and every movable piece of machinery had sensors, such as robotic arms and forklifts. And the reason for this was they could track where any movable object was, so that if it was on a collision course, such as a forklift about to hit into a human, at the end of a section in the distribution center or manufacturing plant, the driver of the forklift would get a ping notification and they would be told to slow down. And if they didn't, the forklift would stop itself to prevent a collision. So this is just another way from even health and safety. So now that we know we have our data in the cloud, and now that we know we're collecting a lot more of that data through the Internet of Things, through those connected sensors, we can now analyze it. And that's what big data and analytics is all about. And one of the powers behind big data analytics is not just its ability to do what we have as traditional analytics of looking backwards to measure performance in the past, but predictive analytics to be able to identify, well, what could happen in the future. So this is our sales forecasting, our marketing forecasting done even better. And then even smarter, if we add in the things like artificial intelligence, we can have recommendation engines built into our analytics dashboards that will suggest us things to do next, such as if you tweak part of your marketing budget this way, you can improve your conversion rate in this part of your business. So if we use big data as the inputs and the training data, we could see artificial intelligence then is the number cruncher or the brain that actually processes that data that we've had. Other technology that you might know is if anyone has any Bitcoin, for example, or anyone has any Ethereum in their accounts, cryptocurrency is one popular use of distributed ledger technology that's hosted on what we call the blockchain, which is a distributed database. But this essentially is almost like another incarnation of the internet. Multiple different data points around the world where data is shared across different people and highly secured, because in order to be able to break into one piece of data, to take it or alter it, it's impossible almost, because you have to break into everyone that has that data. And that's one of the key safety aspects about distributed ledger technology. The data is shared across the entire network, as opposed to you having it on your server and then you backing it up with the likes of Oracle or SAP. Distributed ledger has that data spread across a number of users. And then finally, another piece of technology is what we call additive manufacturing. This is popularly known as 3D printing. So additive manufacturing has moved a long way in the last even just 5 years since I've been watching it, where it used to be just simple light plastics and you could have a 3D printer at home to make something simple like a plastic toy or a plastic implement. I've been looking at manufacturing companies who are now using additive manufacturing to actually manufacture metal. So the chassis, not necessarily the chassis of cars, I can't say that I've seen that example, but definitely metal is being used now to be able to construct component parts. Also, even in terms of e-health, this is a really important area because you can manufacture and print part of an organ or even part of a hip joint that's very custom built for a given patient. So I don't know if anyone's in the health sector, but the key thing with additive manufacturing is it allows for mass customization with a very fast turnaround, because it's not template driven manufacturing process, which traditionally has been done in a scale and margin based business. So there's a book that I was able to get earlier this year. It's really interesting and I would recommend it. It's called The Digital Transformation Playbook by David Rogers of Columbia Business School in the US. So he basically looks at 5 domains of digital transformation, as in 5 areas that are being significantly affected and evolving as a result of tech. I'll only spend a couple of moments here, but I'll give you guys a CTA, a call to action, to go and check out some of his videos on YouTube, because they are very, very good. One area that he's saying is one that we're all aware of. Customers are more connected. We're on Zoom, we're on the internet, we're on social media, we're on email, we're writing employer reviews on Glassdoor, we're writing restaurant reviews on Google, we're going and checking out hotels on TripAdvisor. Now, of course, happy lockdown, guys. These things are not happening in COVID, but in a general sense, we can see that customers have a lot more access to information, and they're also sharing a lot more information with themselves, with each other. We, as a brand owner or as a company owner, we don't fully control the narrative anymore about our company. So it's important to know what customers are saying about us and to research that. The next one is competition. I imagine that for you guys, you're probably thinking about your competitors, and you can name your top competitors on one hand. And if you stretch, you could put it onto 2, because there's probably only a small number of people that you really pay attention to. But what's happening here is, because of technology, your competitors are coming from adjacent industries. So they are no longer what you think of as your typical competitor. If you were sitting as the CEO of a large hotel group, such as the Hilton Group or the Hyatt Group, 15 or 20 years ago, were you thinking that your main competitors were other premium hotels, or did you think that it was a couple of guys who were in their garage developing the latest app that they just called Airbnb? Or did you think that Craigslist was something ridiculous and only used in New York? So the point here is the likes of Craigslist and Airbnb as peer exchange platforms are allowing customers to trade with each other in the same way that we trade on Amazon or eBay or Facebook Marketplace or Etsy. So now these peer networking sites are becoming your competitor because they may serve the same need you do. The Hilton Group provides accommodation. Okay, there's a lot of other things that they can provide that I cannot get if I start to couch surf on an apartment in London. Beautiful restaurants, menus, a spa facility. But if it's just going back to the specific need of accommodation, that's how we need to start identifying our competitors. Not just on, they look like me, therefore they must be a competitor. We need to think about, they are serving my customer need. They could be my competitor in the future. The next one here that Rogers talks about is data and how it's an asset. And this is really taking a look at our own internal proprietary data, because there are data marts that are emerging now where we can buy in third-party aggregate anonymized data and perform some level of analysis on it to improve maybe our own product or service. But if we look at our own data in our own organization, that's really the gold mine to be able to say things like, in performance data, how's our manufacturing process running and where are the efficiencies? Or our customer data, what are the key things that our customers are satisfied or dissatisfied in, and therefore what do we need to do to change our customer experience or our product or service or our conversion rate optimization on our website? So the key thing here is your own data is a treasure trove for you, provided you've got the capability to mine it and analyze it and then take action upon it. The next section then that Rogers talks about is how innovation is taking a lot more tips from software development. So in software development, if you take a Scrum and an Agile model, it's all about quick and fast development of a basic minimum viable product, something that performs the basic function so that you can test it out real time, either with the market or a focus group, or you can run simulations on a digital clone with artificial intelligence. And you can basically see, is this thing working for us? If yes, proceed to the next phase and the next iteration before mass production way later on. Or if it's not working, identify the bugs, fix it, and get to our next test. So constant rounds of testing before release is one aspect of it. But for those of you, sorry, I'm actually trying to show you a phone, but with the virtual background, it's not appearing, but I have a phone in my hand here. For those of you with your phone, you'll probably remember that you're constantly getting notifications. Your apps are constantly self-updating themselves. So with a digital-based product, such as an app, for example, such as your Netflix, you're able to not only release that product, but provide constant improvements to it. Whereas if it's a physical, unconnected device, such as my pen or my shirt or my glasses, that's not going to get ongoing improvements because it's not a connected device. And the final one that Roger says, I find one of the most profound and hardest for some businesses to get over. He says, providing value now that all those other trends are known in the market, providing value to our customers. And he says, if you can't beat them, join them. And one of the big case studies he refers to is the New York Met. So this is one of the big galleries on the Upper East Side in New York. Now, if you have a fixed mindset and you're running the gallery, you're going to say, this is the Instagram and TikTok generation. They're glued to their phones. They're very much into content and instant gratification. They're not going to come to our physical building. We'll forget COVID for the time being. They're not going to come to our physical building and look at a pile of paintings and paintings and sculptures. We are in a really bad position. That's a fixed mindset. The growth mindset that the New York Met actually took was, let's lean into the fact that a lot of people are producing and consuming content on a regular basis. So let's join in that. Let's start producing live video tours of our gallery. Let's produce exclusive behind the scenes interviews with curators. Let's show videos of how we're actually reinvigorating and fixing up photographs and pictures and sculptures that have begun to deteriorate over time. And I'll give you a personal example of how I've seen this play out in reality. During COVID, I really love the National Gallery of Ireland off Merrion Square. It's a wonderful place. I had the privilege of working on Merrion Square and being able to go in there twice a week at lunch to get out of the city. Now, I couldn't go there during the lockdown, as you can imagine, but I was thrilled to see that for a period of time around June and July, they were holding live gigs in the gallery, and they had a full AV team, and they had singers and songwriters there. And I played it on my TV. I Chromecast from YouTube up to my TV, and the resolution was insanely incredible. Plugged in my soundbar. It didn't feel like being in the gallery, but it just made me feel a little bit closer to it. And that was all while the gallery's doors were closed. They couldn't have indoor events. They couldn't have people congregating. So they were able to use a more flexible mindset and say, these are our limitations, but what can technology allow us to do differently to still be in contact with our market and to still keep the business afloat? Doors were closed, but people were still in the room digitally. I'm going to jump back in now and begin to close up here by telling you some of the things that you can look at for your own digital transformation journeys. I wanted to show you this framework from the Boston Consultancy Group and the University of Virginia in the US. They define it as 3 layers that you need to look at: your planning, your implementation, and the enabling layer. So in the planning layer, this is about seeing your business strategy and your technology or IT strategy as one, rather than separate. You don't have a marketing strategy and a logistics strategy and a finance strategy and an IT strategy all as separate. It has to be one cohesive strategy that all comes in together. So seeing digital and technology as an enabler to deliver upon the other aspects of your strategy, rather than seeing it as a cost center. We need to buy laptops and mobile phones and things for people. No, don't just think about hardware costs. Think about how things like AI, big data analytics can give you an advantage over some of your competitors. So that's the strategy aspect. The next aspect here is about what we call, I think it's McKinsey called this a 2-speed IT system, and BCG call it something similar as well. This is about digitizing the core and getting new digital growth. So part of that means digitizing the core, basic maintenance, making sure that you don't have all of your data on paper shoved in an archive folder that you can't access or do any analysis on, particularly during COVID, if you can't go more than 5K away to go to your office and get your archives. So this could be simple things like moving some of your operations, some of your storage, even some of your customer forms from paper into the cloud. So this is basic catch up, guys. This is not special in any way. This is just beginning to sit at the table with competitors. The next section then is new digital growth. This is where you begin to modernize and push yourself forward. This is saying, now that we're in the cloud, now that we have some element of a digital infrastructure, what can we do differently to improve how our business operates and even improve versus our competitors? One simple example we're seeing a lot of organizations do is e-commerce. We have to close the door to our store, unfortunately, for many businesses, not all, but that doesn't mean that we close to our customers. We get a website, we get Shopify integration, we get Stripe for payments, we get a decent shopping cart, and then we're able to sell online. Not that easy, but we can see that it's now taking advantage of new growth opportunities. E-commerce, not new, but for some organizations it is. And then the final one I'll wrap up on that one there is the product versus platform. Do check out some of the things around the platform economy. I'd love to talk to you guys more about it, but just check out a book called The Platform Economy and another called The Platform Revolution. It's the idea that we can actually gain more revenues by not selling simple products, but by providing a platform on which other people can trade. I'll give you the example. Amazon doesn't sell you batteries, toothbrushes, and t-shirts. They provide you a platform on which, for a seller, to sell it to a buyer. So this, for you guys with the significant experience you have, you might just say, Rob, this is old. This is becoming an intermediary. Well, it's become a whole lot more popular again with digital technologies. When the organization I used to work with, HubSpot, for example, they developed their software as a service. That was their product. They realized that opening up their software to have other people build software on top of theirs and provide it out for free or a charge, that was allowing their organization to grow to dramatic new levels. And that was delivered through technology, through what we call API, application processing interfaces. The final one here is those enablers. These are the operational things to get right. A lot of you mentioned the people in our organization and change management. Brilliant. I don't even need to talk about that in too much detail. The next one is the data and analytics. If you're in the cloud and if you're tracking that data, particularly if you're using IoT to do so as well, you're getting more data points in. You should be analyzing it then and identifying trends on how you can improve your production process, how you can reduce waste, how you can reduce inventory by going to that old school thing of just-in-time manufacturing, for example. So how you can improve your operation or your relationship with your customers, or even the effectiveness of your marketing. We've mentioned at length, well, not at length, but we've mentioned the whole section on some of those key technologies: cloud, IoT, artificial intelligence, distributed ledger, and additive manufacturing, and also the Gartner hype cycles. Finally, that last one was the ecosystem, using your technology to integrate and share information with others along your vertical chain. So your vertical chain, also known as your supply chain, is what you do, and then the value network is what you do, plus the rest of your suppliers and maybe some of the intermediaries that follow you downstream before it reaches an end user or an end customer. This goes back to something you guys are also probably still aware of around electronic data interchange and integrated supply chains. It's not dramatically new, but it's getting even closer and better as technology gets cheaper, processing power gets faster, and the data analysis gets better with cloud-based AI. So we are able to integrate better, even though we've been doing it a long time. So guys, I'm going to begin to wrap this one up for you. I have a couple of calls to action for you. There's some further reading if you're interested. Literally just go into Google and type in some of these things to look at digital transformation. There are 3 books that I really like. Leading Digital from Didi Bonnet, former Capgemini, current INSEAD Business School. I love his stuff. Second CTA, you could check out the Digital Transformation Playbook by Rogers, really good. And another one, which is very much based on implementation rather than just strategy, is Lindsay Herbert of IBM, where she has her digital transformation book as well. If you're then looking for some consultancy companies to read some of their material, there's a ton. Boston Consultancy Group, Bain, McKinsey, Accenture. You can get research from Columbia or MIT is fantastic, or even you can get some sign-ups from CIO Magazine and sign up to their newsletter. So there's a ton of information there for you guys available. My quick summary to bring it all together is that digital transformation is more than just technology. It is about leaders with the foresight to see change and the courage to reinvent their organizations before others force them to.